turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello, Tim.
Hello, Ryan.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 145 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
myself, Tim Aslin.
Yeah, that's right. We dismember a horror film every week. Every week we talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything else we found interesting or noteworthy about a, you guessed it, horror film. Today we flew our wings back to 1982 and witnessed The Entity.
I've got an entity inside of me right now.
Yeah? What does that mean?
It's in the form of a breakfast burrito, and it is weighing heavily on me.
Should we exercise it for you?
Well, I tried earlier.
Great.
Gross.
The Entity, 1982, directed by Sidney J. Furie, screenplay by Frank de Felitta, based on The Entity by Frank.
Good old Frank.
The book, which was then all that book was based on the real life case, the Doris Bither case, which is an alleged haunting that occurred in 1974 in Culver City, California.
I was just there shooting a horror film.
And that actually brings me to my next question, Tim, to catch up. You were indeed shooting a horror film this weekend, which is applicable in that it is horror. I'd love to know how it went, and if you had any takeaways from it, you could share with us.
Yeah, it went fine. It went great. When I say fine, that means that catastrophes didn't happen. So that's actually, high praise, high outcome. So that's good. We got everything we wanted to get. It was pretty good. There was, there's little hiccups here and there, like any production, but they were pretty nominal. We got our camera. We rented the camera. We show up on set, and the DP pulls it out, and he's like putting it together, and he's like, none of these batteries are charged, and we're supposed to shoot in an hour. So we had to delay the whole thing by 2 hours to just get some charge into one of the batteries.
Well, aside from charging,
can you
batteries,
imagine? But maybe it was a ghost. Maybe a ghost drained it. They're known to do that. They do it in this movie.
Any other takeaways though?
Don't shoot inside of a car. It's so hard. We had a choreographed fight in the front seat of the car. And there's just not enough space. I think the only way you can do it really, really effectively is you have to have a car where you can remove the windshield or remove the doors or parts of it. Because it was so difficult to try and get in the spaces that we wanted to get. And, we had to make a bunch of adjustments to what our original concept was, just from the angles and stuff. We had to be well, that's not going to work. So we got to figure out how to get what we want from somewhere else in this car. And we managed it, and I think it's all fine. But it's really challenging to shoot in such a small space. Even with the accommodations we made, to knowing that we were going to be doing that, it was really a challenge. It was fun.
Car filming.
There's a really fun death.
Cool.
It's the first time I've done full on practical blood gore effects, and it was pretty exciting.
Great. It gives that feel. We're here. We're doing it.
Yeah,
we're making it happen.
It was great.
Boys with toys.
Yep.
Excellent. Great. Good to hear. All right. Well, to continue on with our episode here on The Entity, we like to start with a trailer. Would you like to start with our trailer, Tim?
Boy, would I.
Great. Anything else we need to set up as far as what the show is?
I don't think so.
Great.
I mean, if you don't know by now, go listen to some older episodes.
If you're just tuning in, well, yeah, sometimes we like to give a further rant on what this is all we're doing here. But today, let's just keep on going.
Yeah.
with our trailer. So here we go from 82, The Entity.
Hey, wake up! Wake up, everybody! It's a gorgeous day! Gorgeous day! Come here.
20th Century Fox presents the story of Carla Moran,
Okay, now look.
the most extraordinary case in the history of psychic research.
Everything broke loose. It went crazy, and everything was shaking. The bed was shaking, and the walls were shaking, and...
Like an earthquake.
No, it wasn't like an earthquake. It was much stronger than any earthquake.
Oh, wait a minute. Honey, I don't really understand this. You were attacked? Or you weren't? It happened. I was raped.
You were raped by whom?
I don't know. There was no one there.
A team of experts will investigate her life.
Why does he attack you, Carla? Not anyone else.
Why is she going to such lengths to support this delusion?
And they will find more than evidence. They will find the entity.
Good title. Before all the titles were already staked.
Right.
The Ghost.
The Ghost.
I don't actually know if there is a The Ghost. There's Ghost.
Yep.
There's The Haunting. And there is The Entity. So, Tim, I'd love to know, per rating system, would you tell yourself to avoid, stream, or rent, or buy The Entity?
You know, I think I'm just going to say stream. Because I guess, like, Barbara Hershey is great. But the movie never really arrives at, I think, like, the promise of the premise for me. I feel like the first half is just the same scene over and over again, and then the second half doesn't come to a not a catharsis, but it doesn't have sort of a great effective ending, I guess, for me. I just kind of was like, okay, maybe this is always a dangerous trap to fall into when you're trying to do something that's, that actually happened. And like, how many liberties can you take with a true, quote unquote, true story? But ultimately I left it kind of being like, okay, cool. Barbara Hershey she's a good actress. The end. Yeah. Just a stream for me.
Got it. It's funny. I feel like I agree with everything you said up to the ending. I thought as a set piece that house recreation thing that they did worked. Like, it felt like one of those things that shouldn't work, but it really did somehow.
I like the attempt.
Yeah, okay. Something clicked for me in there where it felt like, yeah, I agree. The whole movie felt like we were never really getting there or clicking, but something with that end set piece, it just, I don't know. It felt like this is unique. Haven't seen this exactly before. It was cool.
Yeah.
So for all that, and I think Barbara Hershey is great. I'm a big fan. That elevates it to a rent for me.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's early 80s, 70s-esque. You just can't make them like that anymore, even if you tried. So always points for that in my book of just, that's going to make me enjoy it more.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept wondering, how have I not seen this? But I think, and maybe I said this on last episode when we pulled it, I definitely have seen the box, in the video store, that in the trailer, the final title, the design of that title, I'm like, oh yeah. I've looked at that box, a couple hundred times when I was in Video Barn in the early 90s or late 80s, I guess probably too. But just never picked it up. And maybe it's because, I don't know. I'd actually like to see what the box says, on the back of it, that would have gotten me to be like, nah.
Yeah. Sometimes you may not even been a gnat. You just don't get around to it or whatever.
That's true. I think maybe, also like, because it seems like it would be one I would gravitate towards just based on the title.
Yeah.
I'd be like, ooh, cool. Like scary monster movie.
Well, to tie it all back, this is one of the reasons we have this show is for us to fill in our holes, so to speak.
Yep. Well, we'll get into it. I was going to complain.
Well, we have a whole section for that.
That's right.
But before we get to that, we have a section for the opposite of complaining. So, and before that, we have to summarize it.
That's right. Let's summarize it. Barbara Hershey got a few kids.
Carla Moran.
I mean, it's just kind of brutal. She is raped by an unseen entity. And then that happens again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And like every time it happens, like one more or two more people are like sort of there to be like, whoa, what's happening?
Yes.
So it escalates throughout.
That how you describe it is the kind of where it feels repetitive. But I feel like the thrust of it is sort of actually a good way to put it. And this is what works, not to get ahead, but the box art, how you described it, like that gets at the heart of what the isness of the movie is pretty well, where it's both supernatural with the glowing white and then has this metallic underneath to it. It's sort of
that scared the shit out of me just now. That's not a sound I was prepared to hear. And because I have a headphone in one ear, it was like I thought the world was crumbling just now.
It was not. The door was my cat was opening my creaky door.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It's like when the dummy laughed in the end credits of the Goosebumps movie, and that scared me.
Anyway, you were saying,
sorry. No, what I was getting at, how the key art, the title art for this is pretty emblematic of what this movie is, where it's the intersection between like, even more so Poltergeist and Exorcist, they kind of get into it. But even more so, this is all about the sort of modern science meets unexplained science and using the method to approach it all. Right. So a lot of like men in lab coats, as we mentioned, it has a culmination into like a lab set, like a studied in lab environment. Yeah,
like at a university.
Yeah, all that. So that's what's, I don't know, that's what makes this movie unique for me. It's cool. And and I guess, as far as in the sense of a summary though, that's sort of that's the thrust that's going on, where it's like she's going through all that, reaching out for help from different doctors. Then they're talking to each other. Then she starts to doubt them. Then she reaches out to different types of doctors. So that's sort of what's happening as far as it not being literally just the same scene.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, because it's based on some factual stuff, you kind of have two movies almost. The first movie is the actual like haunting, and the second movie is the research into the haunting.
Yes.
And it's pretty like, it's right down the middle. Actually, like I paused it like and was like, where are we? And I was like exactly halfway through, and she's like meeting the parapsychologist people for the first time. I was like, oh, okay, well, here we go.
Exactly. See, just like the title I said, down the middle. The art has both sides. Cool. And they defeat it, but not is the ending.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, largely a story about men not believing women.
Yeah, for sure.
Good parable for all that.
Yep. Very much so.
All right. Well, should we dig into what worked then?
Don't you think it's sort of fascinating that like this movie was made in 82 based on a story from whatever it was 70 or well the case was 74 and we're still having this conversation about people believing women or not believing women.
Yes.
It's only 40 years, 42, 45 years ago.
It's not that long at all. That's what I think.
Well, but
change does happen quickly when it happens.
Yeah, all sorts of other things in the world have changed drastically and some fundamental things have not.
Right. Well, I mean, we'll get into this all, but change in the face of, in this case, the paranormal is, I think, well, that's a very big wall to overcome.
Sure is.
That way.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I set it up. Here we go. Next section. What worked?
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I'll tell you what's working for Sixto over here.
His little cat food.
Chow down.
Oh, to be a cat.
He's into it.
Wait.
Full face in the bowl.
Wait, was there a cat in this movie? Did they have pets?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Anyways.
Sixto has like an interesting, like, when you look straight on, he's got like a weirdly human face.
I know.
That's creepy.
I've got some intense pictures of him. He's extremely emotive. And he makes eye contact with you.
Yeah.
So, which cats don't do all too frequently. Just looking at, just glanced at Tim, peering into your soul.
Yep, pretty much.
An entity lays inside. Indeed.
What was working for you in this one, Ryan?
Well, to get the big ones out of the way, Barbara Hershey, man.
Yeah, she's really good.
I mean, to follow it up after our Roman Polanski episode, now I'm going to mention my favorite Woody Allen movie as Hannah and Her Sisters. That's mainly how I know Barbara Hershey.
Okay.
She's so good in that. And recently in Black Swan, more recently.
Oh, that's right.
She's the mom in that.
Yeah.
It was really good. So big fan of hers. And she, I mean, what a role to carry, you know? Like,
I kept thinking, you know, maybe not in terms of actual like one-to-one parallels, but because of the era, because of that it's paranormal, you know, I was drawing some sort of some connections to Poltergeist and just the thing that stood out to me about Barbara Hershey that also stands out about Jo Beth Williams in Poltergeist is just like the utter commitment to this like scenario, like the circumstances that are being presented in this story. Both of them they completely are in and like selling it the shit out of it. And I really appreciate that because I think at the time, you know, this is true for Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist as well. It's just full force, taking it seriously as an actor and like crushing it.
I think a quote I heard from all of them definitely recently, Barbara Hershey on this, they'll say, I wasn't treating it like a horror movie, but I wonder if what that actually means is I wasn't treating it like a movie, which then is just, I don't know. It's a weird thing to kind of break down maybe, but it just sort of gets at what the tone of the movie is in the end. If it needs any sense of realism, you're just creating the reality.
Yeah.
And to create this reality, we mentioned what it's about in the summary. It's a lot she goes through, and physically too. I mean, I guess, to get in some specifics of her performance like that. And it also gets into some good things about how it's shot, but to really only do her attack scenes in close up, where it helps to sell her like like when her arm's getting pulled
Mm-hmm.
above her head, or when she gets whipped around or whatever. I mean, it's just that perfect combination of dedication on her part and I guess the whatever else they're doing to sell the effect.
Yeah, I mean, just the visceral nature of it, I guess. They definitely got that across.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush. Like, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Especially I think is it the second time when she's in the bathtub? Like, that one is particularly, like, intense and it's not graphic, like it's not like they're showing, I don't know.
They can't show to an extent.
Right. But like the suggestion of what's happening, well, what's literally happening, I guess, it's all kind of wrapped up in the same stuff. Like, seeing her legs invisibly like pulled apart is just like immediately extremely unsettling or upsetting, or both, all of the above. And yeah, I mean, it's effective. I'll give it that. It's extremely effective. The first one I thought had sort of a vagueness to it of what was going on, and I didn't. It didn't jump out at me. Oh, that she had been raped. Like, specifically, that was her experience in the first instance of this. And then she goes to the doctor and like says that explicitly. And I was like, oh, okay. And then that bathroom one is just full go.
Yeah. Like
being assaulted and raped. And it's really gnarly.
Yeah.
Like, really, really hard to watch.
Even though you mentioned it was repetitive in a sense, I thought they did a pretty good job at the same time of sort of escalating them in a smaller way where like she changes, like, let's say, you summed up those two, but then I think the next one is when she changes locations and stays at her friend's place. So like, change of location, that's something. But then the way it starts, like, that gave me a jolt. Is she's just sitting there and it just comes on full force with this, just everything in the room just slams and she gets thrown and it's super loud. The windows start bursting apart.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, that is super intense. I mean, and then there's the one with the kids are just in the room when it's happening, which is extraordinarily upsetting.
Yeah.
And the son gets weird electric sort of sparkles around him. Right. Lightning comes out of his hands, kind of. It's pretty cool and intense. All of those instances, I think, from a content point of view, play really well and are effective. There are other things that I think don't work about each of those, but whatever. In their essence, I think they're all pretty well done.
And just on the attacks themselves, too, kind of already alluded to it, but the intensity and the violence that's on display, the way she's getting thrown around, it's just like you sense the presence of there's just a strong man, very large, strong man doing this, which is it's intense. And to get that across from like it's invisible, yet you still get all that character and malice from it. It was very effective.
Yeah. What else? You know what I noticed about this? Maybe I started to stop noticing it, or it stopped happening probably in the second half. But the first half of the movie, and I like this. Maybe it does it a little too much, but generally I like it. The vast majority of shots in the first half of the movie are canted.
Yep.
I mean, like, almost every single shot is not balanced, right?
They really go all out.
It's pretty wild. And I just appreciate that. I'm like, if you're going to do it, like, and you're going to try and really make the audience feel uncomfortable, that's it's going to work. Like, that mission accomplished for at least the first half.
I thought of you with that, just thinking you were noting it and enjoying it, the canted angles. My favorite that I remembered were because the house is on a slight hill of a street. And so they balanced the shot so it was going, the word be perpendicular with the sidewalk. therefore leaving the house at an angle, a slight angle.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was neat. And then I really liked another one where it was Dr. Phil Snyderman, or one of their first scenes where she and we are kind of sussing him out. And the way the angle is, it makes it really feel like he's lording over her, or, you know, sort of a bit of subtle mistrust or questioning mistrust is just put in there from the candid angle, and puts us in her experience well, I thought.
Yeah, they do some cool stuff in that interview / whatever it would be.
Slight interrogation.
Yeah. If I remember right, the blinds in that room, it's a very almost unnatural feeling setting, the way it's designed. Like, you've got this kind of clearly manufactured light coming through the window, and I'm pretty sure it's vertical blinds. But the camera is all in sort of triangle angles to the room, so you're not locked off looking straight at a wall, right? You're at these angles, which creates this weird, very unsettling sort of like borderline funhouse feel. And I just appreciate that sort of use of like linear contrast and lighting, just to sell how she's feeling throughout. It's good. I mean, I don't know, you know, to give credit where credit's due, if it's how much of that is the DP and how much is the director, or just the team coming up with the stuff they need to come up with. But like, I did quite appreciate all of that.
Yeah. I liked the, well, I mean, I guess like I already mentioned in the summary, we have what's going on with the doctors and overall the people in her circle believing her, and to what extent. So I thought this did a really good job of balancing all that, where it didn't go so hard on like no one believed her, like her kids kept missing it, or her friend kept missing it. It was just so frustrating, and builds on, which, you know, is effective in its own right as an angle, but for this level of realism it was going for, I thought it struck a good balance. Like, I liked, when the kids, you know, they fully witness it. I liked when she gets attacked at the friend's house, and we don't like the husband. You know, he's all like,
he sucks.
This your crazy friend of yours staying there. But it's cool that they hear the commotion just as they're leaving, as they leave her behind. And it's like they get in just in time to see like one of the final windows blowing out. And so, of course, her friend, me, is like, "Oh my God, are you okay?"
Yeah, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't fully believe you." Yeah,
exactly. And then the fucking husband, of course, is like, "Look at what did she do? She tore the place apart."
Oh,
and
man.
Then the wife yells at him for us. It's like, are you kidding? Like, how would she do this right now? Like, you think she just blew out all of the windows, like with the glass coming inside? What? And he literally just saw it too. Like,
right. That stuff. I mean, it's good. It's depicting a thing that is infuriating well.
Right. So exactly that encapsulates what I'm talking about, the balance of her friend. Great, I saw it. We get that satisfaction. Thank God someone else saw it. But then equally the frustration of her husband. Just be like, it doesn't matter, he just saw it. He's still just going to say the thing that reduces it to something he can accept.
Yeah, and this, you know, this carries through the movie, this sort of, I don't know, what would you call it? It's sort of, I guess it's a thesis almost, that, you know, this idea that there are mostly the men in the film are skeptical, but in the realm of disbelief and like, oh, well, it can be explained away based on what we know, right? And that falls apart. And, you know, I really appreciate that. I think that's important to sort of, it's an important thing to explore, because at its core, science should not have certitude over anything, right? Like that's kind of the basic gist of science in its essence.
Right. It's a process, not a definable thing. That's
right.
Yeah.
And yet humans, and I guess patriarchal, you know, societal men by you know, extension, they want to say, oh, well, now we know. we've done this and now we've come to a conclusion and therefore it must be this. And it's like, that's so flawed, even though it's like, it's starting from the right place of like, oh, hey, we've collected a bunch of data and we can make some pretty strong conclusions. But like in this, they really lean in on the doctors being like having this certain attitude about what's going on. And she's like, you guys aren't really hearing me, are you? Like, yes, I've had a messed up life and I've suffered a bunch of things and like, I get where you're coming from, but like, this is going way beyond that. I'm getting thrown around a room.
Right.
I can't do this to myself. Like, you can't explain that away with psychosis.
She can't put the bite marks and scratch marks on her back the way they are there.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're looking at her just going, yeah, well.
Right. Well, I think kind of how you said that's wrapped up in a very, patriarchal way of making assumptions. That was done so well in that first scene where she's sitting there in the group of the lab coat doctors, like at the round table. And it goes from, they're essentially, they start off by even bringing up the question and assumption as if she might be enjoying it. Like, that's the place that they come from. Like, they have to clarify, like,
maybe you're getting off on this.
Right. They have to clarify, was this a horrifying experience for you? Or do you enjoy it? And it's just like, that really shows where everything's built on, where they're coming from,
It reminds me of the scene in Aliens when Ripley is, debriefing and, she's talking to the sort of corporate, pencil pushers. And they just keep like towing this line of like, well, you damage like corporate property. And she says the line, I love the line in it that I'm not going to say exactly right, but she's like, did IQs drop suddenly while I've been gone? Or drastically or something like that. She's like, I've told you this a bunch of times and you just keep saying something different than what I'm just right now telling you. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I think that feeling that I would assume, because we get these stories told a lot, especially from women, that feeling of people just obtusely not like hearing or listening to what somebody is saying, it's just so infuriating.
Yeah. You feel it so much. Like, I mean, when you said, I was feeling it here when you said how that sense of certitude, where it's like when they say in that scene, I think it's when she leaves, they say, oh, well, if it's, or maybe this is later once it gets to, they have multiple witnesses, rather than going, oh, it was not hallucination,
a shared delusion or something like that.
It goes from delusion to shared delusion or whatever.
It's like do you hear yourself?
Right. It doesn't matter how many people, but the way they say it, it's not like they say it as, oh, well, this is the most likely thing. They say it as, well, then it is this.
It's the only option is now that it's a shared delusion. It's like, just step back.
Right.
For a second. I mean, that's why I appreciate the second half of the movie, because it really is more so addressing this, and she has allies finally. And as, appropriately so, having the lead scientist doctor be a woman speaks to this theme of, like, the only person who's really going to get on board with her probably needs to be a woman, because she can actually, like, she can wade through this BS and be like, yeah, I hear you. I got you.
Which is interesting, though, because then it gets into some interesting themes of like, but that's still under this, like what was built as a patriarchal construct. Like to jump ahead to the ending, like I love this. There's so much going on with that. I really love that end set piece. Somehow wasn't too weird for how weird it was. It felt very like like a Cronenberg set piece or something. I really, really liked it. But how still then it's like says it all. Something in the metaphor of they rebuild her natural environment in a lab setting. They make the natural unnatural in order to I guess, help cure the problem, put it in a lab setting. I don't know. You know what I'm getting at? There's a lot going on there.
Well, it's bait, right? Like they've made her into bait, but in a controlled setting.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's like, it's conditioned almost improperly. Like if they're assuming that the entity is dumb enough to buy it.
And can be frozen and put into a box.
Right.
At all.
I mean, like that whole concept is just so, like, it's cool, but it's just so flawed. It's so short-sighted to me.
Well, it seems like the approach in the nutshell of, I don't know, all the parapsychologists, the psychologists, all the doctors in this movie. It's you just keep putting in boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is that? Then there's that phrase, I forget what it's called, that phrase or scientific idea that's like, as soon as you study it by like putting a microscope, you change something about it.
Yeah,
inherently.
sure. Yeah.
It's kind of like that, blown up a different way.
I do like, though, I mean, in a way, they kind of hang a lantern on it. You know, they're like, we did everything we could to recreate, your house, except for this and this and this and this.
Right.
And, like, we couldn't find the paint for the walls, so the walls are just white. And they're like, but it looks great, right?
Why even bother? Does the entity, like, is it really going to be confused? Like, it thinks it's somewhere else, but the ceiling disappeared and there's a giant laser gun floating around.
Yeah, there's this mechanical like plexiglass cage that just sits in the kitchen. Like, like who are you fooling?
Right.
Giant tanks of liquid helium above you.
Right. Right.
Also,
it was liquid helium.
Damn, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that was the idea.
I was like, what? Like, she's really putting herself at risk here.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. That's the point. But just one little thing could go wrong, which it does. And she's, I was going to say burnt to a crisp, but it's the opposite.
She's frozen to a crisp.
She's frozen to a cube.
Yeah. Well, something else with with the helium gun, I love very much. And this says a lot too. I don't know, just it's a good extension of the promise of the premise. We have set up this entity, poltergeist, whatever it is, has some sort of relationship with, control with electricity and objects. Like, we know it can move objects, right? So it just it was sort of the natural conclusion, but an unexpected one that I just thought was so neat of, well, yeah, then why couldn't it take control of this helium gun? As if when we sort of go into it, we're almost sort of getting caught up with the idea that it is, no, but this is the scientist's best gear, it's something that's somehow greater than this entity, Yeah.
It gets into, actually, I hadn't really thought of this specifically, but this whole movie is kind of about hubris, right? Like, all of the men and all of the people in positions of power are just totally suffering from this hubris that they think they've got a lock on it.
Yeah.
One way or the other. And that kind of is the most reduce, I think, far be it for me to speak about a woman's experience, but reducing down the idea of power dynamic in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it really is like, forget about even gender. The people who think that they're in power are essentially they're trying to play God, and they are, how would you even put this? They are victims of their own hubris.
Yeah.
And so, of course it doesn't work.
Well, that's encapsulated so well, I thought, by Ron Silver as Dr. Phil Snyderman.
Ron.
Like,
what a beard, right?
Right.
Like, just what a beard.
He's just like the poster child for what you described, I feel like. And his performance, his casting, whatever, all that adds up to a character, I thought was done so well from his first scene, as far as how we feel about him. It's always wrestling with this ambivalence. We like him a little more in this scene, then all of a sudden we're lost from him again. And then that carries through to an extent through the whole movie, and challenges us in a certain way when he's the one who's, I mean, he's true. He's honorable in his intent to save her at the end. So it does cross this line where we are sort of hating him at that point for being totally refusing to be open to anything. Yet then he's also the only one who steps up and wants to save her. Like, we're reminded his intent is true, even if he's been gaslighting her along the way.
Well, it's interesting because I was surprised at the nuance that they put into his character, because in the first, I don't know, 3-4 interactions that he has with her, he's very like measured and polite and genuine, but like he asks for permission every time there's a potential for him and like to overstep, or not overstep, but to cross a boundary. He asks permission, really, like for everything. Can I go in here? Is it okay if I ask you this? Is it okay if I do this? And like, that's very unusual for the era in particular, but it's unusual for how men are written in general. Like, even now, that's not a thing that you see very much. So it struck me as this kind of interesting dynamic where I think kind of what you just said, at the beginning, we learn that like a bunch of very important facts about who he is at his core, which is a concerned, intelligent, polite, and well-intentioned doctor.
By the book doctor, yeah.
Right. And his flaw, ultimately, I think, is just that he falls into this trap of being like, but I'm also like attracted to this person. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like how you deal with being attracted to that person, and it kind of bites him in the ass. But at the end of the day, like he is kind of just like an all right dude.
Yeah. But then it's cool. Yeah. Like how you, what am I trying to say? But then he's, what he represents when he stops helping her is when he stops believing her. Mm-hmm. He's just guilty of being caught up in the thing that refuses to be open to the possibility of alternatives to what they already think. Yeah,
in a way, like he's just as much at the mercy of these kind of patriarchal societal norms. And he falls into them and we go, oh, bummer, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we thought you were going to be like the exception to the rule, and you're kind of just the same.
Talking about patriarchal societal norms and how that's sprinkled throughout the film, I thought, was when her...
I know where you're going.
I'd be curious. When her boyfriend shows up...
Yeah.
You do? Okay. And he basically, like, he's the estranged boyfriend who, like, essentially kind of left her just to be on her own or whatever.
He's the perfect foil to the doctor, right? Because the doctor is, like you said, by the book, trying to do the right thing at all costs. He's trying. He's not always accomplishing it, but his intention is always to do the right thing. And her boyfriend is like, could not be more the opposite. All the wrong things. He won't commit. He talks about how he wanted to marry her, but he just couldn't make it work. He's always gone. He's definitely sleeping with other people. Like, he's just the worst.
And when we see him it's so, he's like, she's really not in the mood, so to speak, but he's like, here, change into this outfit. And then he just uses this excuse throughout that evening of, oh, but it's my homecoming. Oh, but I haven't seen you in so long.
Him.
Yeah, exactly. All about him. He like, in the bathroom, he sprays that whatever into his mouth. Just like total classic, like cringy.
Even his feigned like like outrage when she's like, I've been raped. He's like, by who? I'm gonna get him. And she's like, well, he's invisible. And he's like, well, I don't understand. So I'm still mad, but I don't believe you.
Right.
It's like, oh God, you're just the worst caveman sort of version of this. But it's good. I mean, that's appropriate. It fits in with the themes of the movie.
It's just that guy.
I love when he when he walks in and she's, being pinned down and her boob is being squeezed by an invisible force, which I thought was a hilarious, just the mechanics of how they built a body for her that has some sort of, I don't know how they did it exactly. It's got like little bladders inside of the fake boob that are like squeezing from the inside. It's just a funny effect because it's just, I thought, on the wrong side of camp. It's close though. It's almost really good, but I love his expression when he walks in the room and sees this, because it is complete and utter confusion.
Right.
Like, he cannot process it.
And so satisfying that he was confronted with it. That's what I was saying too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like everyone's missing out on seeing this.
It's also terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine walking in to see your loved one? Well, as much as this douchebag can love anybody, but like, just, for the thought exercise of it, you walk in and you see your loved one naked, paralyzed, and like looking at you like,
dude,
please help. That is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And then you try to go over to him and you get like thrown across the room. Can you, like, I think your brain would just split in half.
I mean, and that guy is exactly who I want to see have to deal with this.
That's right.
It's so satisfying.
Come on, babe.
In a way.
Let's have some scotch.
Then, I mean, that actually keeps up, keep coming back to it with the ending too. I loved how it was Dr. Phil Snyderman and the kind of the senior doctor above him who's like the uber skeptic or whatever.
Yeah.
Then when he's, sees the big ending play out with the entity being frozen and he's just at a total loss. It reminds me of like the effect of the boss, the realtor guy at the end of Poltergeist, watching the house collapse.
That's right.
It's very satisfying to watch them to come to terms with it, and often just go back to denying it somehow, which he does in this one.
Right. It is, yeah. I mean, I think the things that really work on a fundamental level throughout are like we said, the performances are all really good, but like from the theme and character, specificity, I guess, like, or the characters in relation to the themes are really honed in.
Yeah.
And that's great. There's a bunch of stuff that I think the movie suffers from due to a number of factors, whether it be budget or just technology at the time. But like those things aside, at its core, the use of constructing this film from a story point of view and the characters and weaving those into the various themes that it's trying to get across. Good, really good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd actually kind of like to, I say this all the time, but I kind of want to read the actual book, because it seems like it's more of an account rather than a novel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be interesting to see it kind of from that point of view.
And that's something to mention too, kind of like in Poltergeist, it's so much fun just when the parapsychologists arrive with all their gear and they're always quirky characters and just seeing their world. That's a big aspect of this movie, like you said, the whole second half. So I enjoyed that. That worked for me. That was fun. Some other just little side things to mention. I liked something that maybe this only does come from when it's inspired by a real event, but the fact that she had multiple kids, she had like 3 kids.
Yeah,
it's just
2 daughters from one ex and the son from her first husband,
Right.
who I think died.
But
Yeah, died when she was like 16.
I like that as just a sort of a sense of realism and flavor where it feels like it's so easy just to go, well, we're making a movie here. Why not just combine the kids to be, one or two kids
Mhm.
or whatever. But it's just to go all out. I don't know. It lends it a sense of realism. I like to just, kids are, a pain to work with and get, but even if their characters aren't too distinguished, nope, that's realistic. It's how it was. We'll be true to that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then the music in itself, I really liked as put it on the sound of it being definitive of an era. And with that, we could move on to the next section if you have anything else.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, great. Next section. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
So
the music, I was just
can
saying.
we continue on that thought?
Yeah, no, I like how when horror movie music especially does this, when it's rides that line of being almost like a sound or a noise where it's just repetitive, don't, or just a couple sounds. I think that's cool. However, in the context of this film, I thought it was totally distracting, out of place, and is this one of those cases where if you didn't have it in there, it would be so much more effective.
So much more effective. I mean, the first time it happened is jarring, but every consecutive time after that is just annoying. It's just super annoying. It's like, dude, I was feeling a whole mood until that chonk, chonk, chonk sound started up again. Like, get out of here with that. Stop it.
And we didn't mention it too. It was pretty neat and a decision for sure to have that first attack happen so quickly. It happened so soon, right off the bat. But to have it without the music would have really set the tone and stage.
Oh
in a
my
way.
God, can you imagine? Just be so much more eerie and effective and upsetting.
Similarly, on a aural note, you just with those lightning effects and different things, if you just didn't have the weird sound effect that they made, it would be so much better. Like in Hereditary, there are those strange light effects. They didn't need to make some big obvious noise. Like it's it's super 80s. I mean, I love that it's 80s, but it's just not the movie for it.
Some sound designer is he's like, I got my Casio. I can do all these cool sounds, bro. Check it. Meow, meow, meow.
Yeah, this isn't, like I've mentioned before, Flash Gordon. You don't. It's a sense of realism we're going for here.
I'm always going to err on the side of the studio wanted it. You know what I mean? With that kind of stuff in this era, like, I could see a director being like, nah, man, it's cool. Like, it's cool to not have anything.
Or like From Beyond is one that we reviewed and loved. I mean, that's the kind of movie where you go with this direction and the crazy effects, music, blah, 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 blah. But no, I mean, it's really Barbara Hershey doing her thing it's really undermined it. It was sad.
Yeah.
I feel like there were one or two just sort of inconsistencies that threw me for a loop a little bit when watching it, but nothing too major. Like I remember when the Dr. Snyderman, he was in their meeting at the hospital, he was insisting like you have to have someone stay with you. And then he ends up taking her home, yada, yada, but then leaves her behind and totally just that train of make sure someone's with you is left. I'm like, well, whatever happened to that? I thought I'm going to insist someone stays with her, but no, that apparently was forgotten by him / the movie. I don't know.
I think, one of the things that really stands out, and I'm not entirely sure how you do it better, but I think it is critically flawed in a horror movie of this sort of extent, like when the the context of what's happening, especially like you said, we start the movie off essentially with the first attack. We then have a bunch of scenes where she's putting herself in, like calmly putting herself in a like alone scenario and like acting pretty casual. And I'm just like, I have a really hard time getting on board with that's where her state of mind would be, that she would be like, okay, well, that was really messed up yesterday, but time for a bath.
Yeah.
It just, I think you can put them in that environment, but I think the trick is to have the character still aware of the thing that has happened. Still, like, it needs to still kind of be living that they just went through this thing. Right. In them.
Like,
so it's simple stuff too. I think it's you just got to just sort of guide the actor to say, but this is still on your mind. Let that inform your behavior in this moment, because I just don't buy it when I see Poltergeist kind of does this too, to be frank. Like when Jo Beth Williams gets ready for her bath after they've retrieved Carol Ann. She's very like...
I get it in that movie, though. They are, they think Tangina says this house is clean.
Yes.
I believe her.
Right. So actually, that's a good point, right? Like, you've got this delineation. But in this movie, you don't. Like, it starts with the attack, and then, like, 2 scenes later, she's just casually, like, getting ready for bath time.
Yeah.
And, have an introspective moment. Have her look around. Have her purposefully think, normally I close the door when I take a bath, but that was really messed up. So I'm going to make a point to show the audience that I'm in a state of mind where I need this door to be open. Yeah. So that when it closes, which it does, we go, damn, or she's in trouble.
She's telling her kids, or
totally anything. Have her looking in the mirror as she's getting ready, going like, am I going to do this by myself, or should I just go to bed?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
She's hesitant to disrobe, or
something, right? Like, I think you really, really undercut the character in particular when you have them just sort of carry on like nothing happened.
Yeah.
So that, it irks me. I also I know she is trying to like have agency as the movie carries on, and like seek out help and like be a part of figuring this out. But they really shoehorn like her, what would you call it? Almost her sort of passive flightiness. She's like, I need help, but I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, no, man, like I feel like she needs to be more. They need to take her more. Well, the filmmakers, I think, needed to take the character more seriously, because Barbara Hershey is taking it extremely seriously. But like, would she really like happily agree? I mean, maybe not happily, but like readily agree to this scenario that they put her in with the house, the rebuilt house? I think she would be like, okay, like, you need to explain to me how this is going to be okay. Right. Like, she needs to have some skepticism in it. She just carries on with it like almost deer in headlights, like, okay.
Right.
And that undercuts the character.
I agree. Yeah, that could have been acknowledged a bit more, but I think that one bothered me less so. And actually, to circle back a bit, I mentioned, wanted to mention, and what worked was the fact that she goes into these meetings with the doctor basically saying, I'm probably crazy. What's wrong with me? Help me. She's not going in saying, a ghost got me, and then they're doubting her. It helps us plug into her trajectory to just sort of, she's thinking what one should think of it. If everyone's saying she's crazy, she's like, maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, but she's rightly so. She's going, I'm just as confused as you are, but you all aren't acting confused. You're acting like you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
So that's you can see then that's her trajectory of, why she gets so on board with the parapsychologist. It's like someone is just willing to just believe me. So you sort of get, that's almost like maybe a negative side effect of when you have one side that's so disbelieving, then you all of a sudden get too far on the other side. So I think that actually played for me, and sort of as far as her being so on board with the parapsychologist at the end, just so then we sort of ended with that sort of, well, is like one side better than the other right now? You know, when the Siderman's trying to save her and they're trying to shoot her with a helium gun. Anyway.
Yeah. From a technical standpoint, I think the structure is hindered the way they did it. Right? Like, I think you could have mixed the first half and the second half a little more, like, paced out and a little more effectively. It just, like I said, it's just so split down the middle, where the first half is this one series of events and one series of characters, and then it's like, now we're moving on to the other group. And I just think it hinders, well, if you involve all parties, at least to some degree earlier on, that gives you more room for setting up conflict as you carry through. Whereas this one's sort of like, we're all on board with Snyderman. Oh, just kidding. Snyderman kind of shot himself in the foot. Time to be all on board with the parapsychologists. And that's it. Like, it's just too... It's too crisp of a line to me, like one than the other. I'd much rather see it woven together a little bit better.
The ending set piece, it was woven pretty well.
Well, that's my point, is that we end up seeing what it could have been sprinkled through more of the movie. Like the effectiveness of that conflict that happens at the end, we could have been setting that up way earlier and having, so that when that final conflict happens, they're not just sort of like, oh, here, there's that guy we met that one time who was kind of a jerk to us.
Right.
That we don't really know, haven't really had any interaction with. They could be like, yo, Snyderman, we've got beef with you. Like repeated beef with you throughout this movie. You don't get to show up now.
Yeah.
I think the trap is that you compartmentalize the characters' interactions, right? Snyderman only interacts with Carla. He has like one passing scene with the parapsychologists, like in the middle. And then they don't really interact until later.
Yeah.
Like, have everybody intertwined. Have everybody have like a little bit of back and forth throughout, so that you can establish these dynamics, like character dynamics. It's like, it just makes for more interesting and more, I think, more kind of like grounded in reality feeling storytelling. Because like, that is how we operate. You know, like, you and I know each other. I met you through our friend. Our friend knows people that you know that I've only met like once or twice, vice versa. You know what I mean? It's like, there is this web of connectivity. And when you're trying to tell a nice linear story like this one, like, everybody's connected. They're all in the same story. Let's interconnect them more.
Right. Well, I mean, then that just is all put as the basis of storytelling, and points to have different characters representing different parts of a theme.
Right.
And so let's see them interact.
Right. Yeah. And again, I guess I'm kind of beating a dead horse. When it's based on real story, I think oftentimes storytellers handcuff themselves to the facts of that story. And it's like, you know, you are still just making a film. Like, you're not making a documentary. So like, take some
right.
What am I trying to say? Take some
creative liberties.
Yeah, liberties. Exactly. It's okay. You can do it. If somebody gets their feathers ruffled because you depicted them slightly differently than how it went down, right, I think we're all going to be okay.
I mean, if they can bring themselves to creative liberties as far as lightning shooting or like, come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So, another thing that I found, I don't know if it was not working so much. Well, okay, so what was not working about it is the weird nature of, or the depiction of her and her her only son, her son's relationship for the first 2 or 3 interactions that they had, I had no idea what their actual relationship was. It was so completely unclear to me that he was her son.
Yep.
And that, I think that's it. That's an oversight. They needed to define that better.
It was, from learning about a bit of the production, it was kind of an in-between where there was originally more some kind of like intentional Oedipal stuff going on between them. Who knows why? But I know I assumed that it was like that they were together. I mean, at the beginning is what the energy felt like.
Just as a reaction to that, I can see a pathway to constructing their relationship in a way that makes for good story conflict. Insofar as let's say you want okay, here's what I would do. Don't have the audience think that they've got some sort of relationship going on necessarily. Have their relationship be of a closeness, because they are very close in age, like by the facts of the story. She was 16 when she had him, right? So they're very close in age.
Yeah, he's supposed to be 16 in the movie, and he's being played by a 19-year-old.
Right. So just by the virtue of the closeness in age, you don't have to do anything else. Just have them behaving like a typical mother-son relationship, but have outside characters feeling weird about it.
Yeah.
And so when let's say the cops come the first time because she calls them and she's saying, yeah, I was raped, the first thing they should do is turn to him and go, why'd you do that? You know what I mean? They should accuse him.
At least glance at it or something.
That creates good conflict because it's a false accusation, right? Like it's a bad accusation. Then you've got trouble because it further supports the sort of presumption pathway that the men in this movie are sort of like suffering from, and it gives her more to be like, you are not hearing me, and also fuck you for even thinking that that's maybe what happened.
I feel like that level is what the filmmakers wanted, but they were like overly deliberate in trying, as if they had to sort of sell that.
That first interaction that they had, I'm like, oh, he's her boyfriend that's like the mechanic who lives in the back house.
Yeah. I know. It's weird.
So just like the failing of it to me is just the lack of clarity on it.
Yeah, there was apparently a shot that was deleted where it's just like she's just like gives a passing glance to him, kind of thing, his muscles or whatever. Like, no, dude, you don't need all that. Like,
yeah, please stop. Yeah, come on, just stop it. Let's see.
They
what
were
else?
pretty close in age, I guess. If he was,
in reality, yeah,
or closer than,
So, I think for me the ending, I don't know. It just doesn't rise to the level of like what I think it could. It feels kind of, it just falls flat to me. I don't know. I'm not even sure how to describe why that is. It kind of just, whereas Poltergeist, the final set piece is just so elevated from the rest of the movie. And the rest of the movie is intense. So they really go above and beyond what they already have established. This one just felt wonky to me. It felt ham-fisted. I was like, okay, Snyderman's running in there like, Johnny Hero. And it just, I just didn't like it. I just was like, blah. She's so passive in the ending, right? She's just stuff's just happening around her. I hate that. Like Jo Beth Williams screams like, stay away from my babies. Like that chef's kiss, right? Like we get the whole movie right there because she's actionably saying, this, I'm not going to let this happen, and I'm taking over and taking control, and I'm going to kick the shit out of you. This is just too passive for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then I think it's hindered more even further by the just kind of lame effect. The ice thing is whatever.
Yeah, we did not mention certain things we did not mention in what worked. Now let's see if they earn a place in what did not work. So not necessarily for me. I don't know if it worked or didn't work as far as that effect of it being frozen. I was like, whatever.
There's the actual effect, like the whatever you even call that. It's like a it's a comp. They're comping it in, but they're comping it in before we could comp things in well.
Right.
So it's like a miniature ice block falling apart, but blown up on and overlaid onto the actual screen. It's like bleh.
Well, since we didn't mention it yet, I want to know what you thought of the ending. There, that's what you thought of it.
This is my last thing, because it is the last thing in the movie. I hate it. Like, I hate it. Yeah.
So what is it? If you
it's
are
the
viewers
fucking
into
entity saying "Welcome home, cunt," and it's just, I hate it. I don't even know where to start.
The effect was
right. He's back, and he's more of a dickhead. Like,
I thought the effect was not handled well. Like, it didn't reach that sort of the actual chilling level of like when you hear Black Phillip talk in The Witch, you know,
Sure.
like that. There's that well done, I thought. Or when we hear the voice in what was the more recent one, the Saint Maud. That voice I thought was good. That comes on. When turns out it's her voice slowed down. But this, it just felt, I don't know, like hokey. The effect of it, and which is unfortunate for what is said in the content of it. And I liked the ending thematically as far as just her still living with it, you know, and that, you know, they didn't beat it in the end.
Sure.
But as far as, just what it says and how it says it and just how that all plays out just felt like, I'm not quite working.
It feels so cheap to me. It feels like they're just trying to be shocking.
But can you imagine it? I could imagine in a better movie it being truly haunting. Like if it was building to that, you know?
Just don't say cunt.
Yeah.
If it was,
say that.
Look, don't even make it a scary voice.
Yeah.
Have it just be a man's voice saying, "Welcome home, Carla." And we would be like, oh, God, gross. Because that's what, you know, insidious, like, sketchy people, like men do. They're just gross, right?
Insidious, Chapter 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can you imagine if they did like a painted face like in the mirror or some bullshit? Ugh.
The Conjuring 3 is about to come out, Tim.
I know. Well,
should we review it?
Probably. I mean, I guess.
If people want to hear us hate on those movies, sure.
I think I like The Conjuring. The first two Conjuring movies I like more than I like the Insidious movies by
I watched
a long shot.
The Conjuring 2 in theaters and did not like it. And then I started watching the first Conjuring at home. I couldn't make it 10 minutes in. Like that first long take that was supposed to be all impressive. I just thought it was not
I don't
good.
even remember.
But I'll watch it again. I'm going to,
I'll use it as like the second one.
I'll use them as an excuse. If we review the third one, I'm going to watch the first two.
Yeah, I will too. I think the first one's ending has some pretty like good, it like gets under your skin kind of moments, like a couple of like chill moments that are pretty solid. The second one I just remember being like, I don't feel like I got a movie out of this. Something about it just never. I was like, okay, that's the end. All right, whatever.
If listener, you want to hear us be our biggest asshole selves, then we'll review it for you.
I'm happy to be that. I've heard people talking about they're pumping it up like it's the scariest thing ever.
That's why I went to see the second one.
Right. And I I look forward to watching it just to sort of see what they think they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling I'm going to just be like, no.
Anyways.
I would love to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Anyway.
Good for things of note on the entity. Anything else that did not work for you?
Was there anything else? No, I think that's it. The that music, brutal. Or the sound effect, not the music itself. I think that's it for me.
All right, then here we go. Next section, things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
Question for you, Tim. Where is the beach that they go to after that first attack? Like, because this is all LA.
Dockweiler.
That's where it has. They still have those white and red striped smokestacks?
Pretty sure, yeah. It's if I'm remembering right, I'm pretty sure those smokestacks are still there, sort of at the back end of LAX. Dockweiler. So it may be the beach that's just down from Dockweiler. Because there's a whole like kind of, I guess it's like an oil refinery that's south of LAX.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's that line. It might be even further down toward Long Beach, because I get those two areas sort of mixed up. It's not somewhere I go very often, but I'm pretty sure that's where it is. Yeah. What else? Tell me. Oh, I like this game.
I thought it was. I'm not quizzing you on any more locations.
Ah, damn it!
Sorry. Well, did it look like Culver City to you?
Yeah, for the most part.
She ends up at the Santa Monica Pier.
That's true. Yeah,
that was fun. I thought it was interesting how this reminded the new Invisible Man remake. Felt more like a remake of this than the original Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I can
all
see
the
that.
Parables about believing women or not, all that. Thought was really interesting.
Can you imagine at the end of The Entity if a guy took off an invisibility suit?
Yeah. How that would be a creative liberty.
Can you imagine how? I don't know if I would be like thrilled or really pissed off.
Do you want to hear a bit about the real case?
I do. Yeah, it's something I wanted to kind of dive a little bit into.
Well, I didn't do a deep dive. I just watched a clip from the show Sightings, which I think was a staple for a lot of paranormal enthusiasts in the 90s, 80s, whenever it was out. But they interview, I guess, one of the main parapsychologist scientists on it. You know, it's later depicted in the film. But just how he outlined the case and some interesting things was like what sort of stumped them was when they were trying to take a picture of it. Basically, they had an instance where she was like, okay, you know, there it is in that corner. They took 2 pictures of it, and the pictures were completely awash, like they were overexposed or just, something like that. And then as soon as she said that it wasn't there anymore, they took 2 more pictures, and the exposure was totally fine. So that was something that tripped them up or raised an eyebrow for them. Much like the film where they said, oh, then it's, you know, psychosis to mass psychosis or whatever. They explained how, you know, they were first poo-pooed about seeing anything odd or witnessing this sort of light phenomena that they saw. But then as soon as they're like, well, we have 20 eyewitnesses, you know, first they say, well, you need more than just you need eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
So he says, okay, great. Well, we have 20. Then instantly the response is, well, mass psychosis, mass hysteria.
It drives me crazy.
So it's just playing that game, but that,
not to say that group think and sort of group,
whatever that is.
Yeah. Like a group can kind of coalesce on a conclusion for all sorts of reasons, you know, and I get that. but like a mass delusion.
It makes it so like there's no way to prove anything ever.
Right.
Because then if it's just, oh, well, the more people that believe it, then it's just automatically the more people are wrong. Like,
yeah.
What?
And it's so anti-scientific. Corroboration is corroboration, right? Like it's like to a point. Like there is a point to that.
Down to a legal sense too.
Yeah. And so then you're just saying, well, except for in this case, it's so dumb.
The light phenomena that he described is pretty cool, though. He said at first, it was they witnessed this bulbous light thing on the wall, and then he was like, "Well, in order to you rule out that that's someone in the room with a flashlight or something like that," he talked to it and said, "Can you prove you're something more than just a light?" And when he said that, it left the wall and moved to the center of the room like a floating.
See, why isn't that
thing.
In this movie? That right. Sounds awesome.
And then he said, and then it gave this like, light show display, or it started bending and undulating and all this stuff. And that was the one that had all these witnesses. It sounded
cool.
Like. And then another photo famous photo that came from this was where he took a picture of her. And what looks just sort of like a camera effect or like a light on the wall, where it's just it's almost like
that's the picture I've seen.
Yeah. Well, what's so cool about it is it looks like it would just be a light on the wall, but you see that it's actually out in the space because it's over the corner of the room and it doesn't bend with the wall. So it is photographed some kind of like top half of a halo or something like that.
So theoretically, from a lens sort of point of view, the only alternative, well, maybe not the only alternative, but an alternative is that it is an actual refraction within the glass of the lens. But even then...
It's funny, you never really see that, though, unless it's like someone trying to photograph a ghost. It's a funny thing about that. So that's some about the case. Did you have anything more on the case?
No, nothing specific. I mean, there's just like, there's little differences. Obviously, she had 4 kids in reality. I do like that this interaction between her and the parapsychologist was a real thing that happened. She, sort of, she met the 2 parapsychologists after a friend of hers heard a conversation between the parapsychologists in a bookstore at UCLA and was like, "Excuse me, my friend's been having some weird experiences. Can you maybe you guys might want to check it out?" So I think that's fun. Like they kind of did a version of that in the movie. And also just random, like that's how you got in touch with these dudes.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, I just think it's, I didn't really know that this was a term, but of course it is a term. Like, why wouldn't it be? Spectrophilia, which is specifically defined as a sexual attraction to ghosts or sexual arousal from images in mirrors, as well as the alleged phenomenon of sexual encounters between ghosts and humans. And it's considered a fetish, but not entirely. It can be classified as a fetish. So there are people out there who are like, I feel like I've seen this too, like an interview with somebody who's like, "Yeah, my boyfriend's a ghost." And I find that all fascinating and kind of hilarious. And also,
you could get the appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, real people sometimes suck.
Right. It's like rather than the ghost being a horrible rapist, what if that's consensual?
Yeah, what if that ghost is just really nice to you?
Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
I did watch through the commentary. There's a lot of special features on the disc too, courtesy Shout Factory. Some stuff from Barbara Hershey's quotes from her in her interview, things she said. She did say she, gave her props to the director, Sidney J. Furie, that She loved working with him. She's sure her performance is 200% better than it would have been otherwise. He helped her plug in. So whatever reality did work for us and come through, she said he helped her get there.
Nice.
I already said, yeah, she didn't think of it as a horror film. You always hear that. She was fascinated by both. Is the question, is she so insane that she made it happen? But if it didn't happen, what was it? That was just her.
Mm-hmm.
You see that in her character. She described the psychiatrist, the doctors in the film, as had a lack of openness and an arrogance to them, which is more or less how we were trying to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She thought the ending felt contrived because it was the experiment. She described it as, this was kind of interesting, that was the experiment that they wanted to do in real life, but didn't actually do.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the fact that it didn't actually happen hurt it for her. There was the interview with the guy. Sorry, I don't have, or what's his name here? The guy who played the son. I'm guessing he was Billy. Is that Moran? Yeah. David Lebiosa. He played it where he never, and I thought this was a smart decision. He pointed out he played it where he never outright didn't believe her. He was always, and I think that was important for those early scenes when she says, someone's in the house, that he takes her seriously.
Mm-hmm.
That helps set up where it goes with him. He acknowledged in this interview, there was like, he wasn't saying in real life, but he was saying with the characters, there was some like sexual energy between them. And like, that's something he gets asked about. The electricity effect when it goes through him. So that was real. That's not an effect.
Would they use a Van der Waal generator or something?
Whatever it's called. Yeah. The thing that makes electricity shoot, then you can be a conductor to it.
Is that what they're called? Van der Waal? I think that's right. Van der.
So he said he had a friend who got him all wigged out about that it wasn't safe and was going to give him leukemia, which was not true. But the filmmakers then offered him more money and he still refused. So they had to use a stunt guy for when the electricity was going through him. So he did his own close-ups then, to sell the effect. But then twist of fate, irony got him in the end because of his refusal to do the wide shots as well and needing a stunt guy. Something about him doing his own close-ups played out where when he fell back, he actually broke his wrist.
Shit.
Which is, you see in the movie, is that happens in the movie, and then it now, from the lightning, whatever it is in the story of the film, but then it actually happened in real life where he got hurt from falling backwards.
Wow.
So he was really bummed about that because they ended, which I didn't quite get, because if he was injured in the movie anyway, because of his real life injury, they wrote him more out of the movie. He had a lot more scenes. It was unfortunate, which I thought would have been nice if, like you were saying, more presence of characters interacting. He was going to be in it more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, conflict is good. It's called a Van de Graaff generator, not Van der Waal.
Got it. Cool.
I have a funny story about Van de Graaff generators if you ever want to hear it.
Do we want to hear it now?
Sure. In physics class in 1990, I don't know, 8 probably, the physics teacher brings in a Van de Graaff generator. It's the metal ball on a post. And you hold a wand across from it when you turn it on and, sparks jump across. It's cool. Turn the lights out. My stupid idiot head decided that I was going to try and charge up because previous to her wheeling this thing out, we had been experimenting with different wands of material. So a glass wand and a plastic wand and a metal wand and a wood wand. And then using different other types of fabrics, wool, cowhide, cotton, whatever, to build a charge up and then see if you could get a spark just between the two wands. But I was still holding the glass wand. I think it was glass. Maybe it was plastic. I don't remember. But I'm still holding it when she wheels this Van de Graaff generator out. And I had a piece of wool, and like I'm standing behind a few kids, and I started like charging up the wand with the wool. I'm like, I'm going to build up a big, static charge in this, and then I'm going to get a huge spark to jump from the Van de Graaff to my wand. Except what I didn't realize is that wand is not insulated by anything. I'm just holding it in my hand. And no joke, I was like 3 feet away from the thing. And I held the wand up like from behind a kid, and a spark jumped, and it was like full voltage into my arm. And I flung that wand like into the, how the old school ceilings are that like paneled like cork board. I've broke one of the panels. I threw it so hard, and it's like clanging on the ground, and I like hit the ground, and she was so mad at me. Like everybody scattered because it boomed too. It wasn't just a spark. It was like it was. Oh man, I've been electrocuted so many times in my life,
dude.
I'm like such an idiot when it comes to that stuff. Anyway, high school, baby, yeah.
Funny. Word of caution, yeah.
Yeah, word of caution for all you kids listening.
Did Barbara Hershey, does she remind you of Sigourney Weaver at all?
Oh, yeah.
I just had
maybe
that
a little
thought.
bit. Sure. She got kind of the same energy.
Yeah. This director of this film, Sidney J. Furie, went on to direct, I was just seeing whatever films of his I recognize, the Rodney Dangerfield film Ladybugs.
Okay.
You remember that?
I remember it.
And then one you might know, Tim, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Boy, do I.
So what's the reputation that film has?
That it is god awful.
Great. Well, in an interview with him, apparently, when someone was, just going, a big fan of this filmmaker was on this DVD a lot. And he said when it came to going through his whole filmography and they got to Superman 4, the director of this film, Sidney, was like, you got 5 minutes. That's all he wanted to talk about this film, Superman 4.
I mean, like, just panned across the board.
Yeah.
It was there was a lot, like, working against it.
So now for your favorite aspect of this film, Tim, Charles Bernstein, the composer.
Okay.
I did like him. It was just unfortunate where, again, like it was the overuse of it that I thought killed it. I will not say not him or the music itself. He described, I just like the way he talked, where he described his composing and like music. He thought of music as floating in a continuum, where it's like in its own continuum. And he's like, that's how he pictures it, where he writes it down from. He said he doesn't read the script. He only likes to watch the film and be inspired by, whatever he's seen.
That's interesting.
I liked what he said here, how, a lot of times people first think that composing is you're composing to what's on screen and being inspired by just like telling the story of what you see.
Right.
He said, no, it's all about what is her inner music. What is the scene's inner music? What is the character's inner music?
I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to approach it.
Except for the it's
accurate, I think, but it was just unnecessary.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Great. And then I had here the composer, or sorry, no, that was the composer, the editor of the film, Tim, Frank J. Uriosti.
Mm-hmm.
There are some weird things that happened, some sketch things that happened during the post-production of this film. So the first day of dailies, he said, was when the first terrifying instance happened.
Oh.
He said during the dailies in the screening room, the little theater, they heard a tearing sound. Like, what the hell's that?
When Sixto entered in earlier?
Not a creak.
Oh,
yeah, a tearing. He says, stop the film, and they go and look at the curtain, and they see it has like 3 feet of tear into it. Like they hear the sound of the curtain tearing.
Like the curtains of the room?
Of the theater, of the screen.
Oh.
Like, it's a screening room.
Oh, right. Of course. Yeah.
So then when they start it up again, they hear the tearing again. And then they turn the lights on and see that the curtain has been teared all the way to the floor. And that's just when they
Lord,
they bug out of there. Then the next thing that happened, he said the editor, he was going to go meet the producer. He told the assistants to stay behind in the cutting room. He says he'll be back. Don't leave. So when he gets back, they're gone. And he's like, well, what the hell happened? I told you guys to stay here. They reported back to him that they left because when they left and came back too, the assistants, and when they came back in that time, the benches and the walls in the cutting room were completely covered with flies.
Ew.
They said, yeah, like very, what's the style? Amityville horror. Yeah,
for sure.
But they said covered, like you couldn't, there's this, you couldn't see anything underneath them.
Gross.
And so then lastly, there is the editing room was next to the payroll office where they stored the film in like an old vault, or it was an old payroll office. So there's a vault inside of it and that they were using to store the film in. And they said there was an instance where this heavy vault door slammed shut completely by itself.
Did you know I came home to my apartment one night and it was completely filled with flies? Like within a few hours. Filled, like hundreds of flies. And I spent like 3 hours killing flies.
I think you told me because you were having a fly problem. They were like coming out of the garbage disposal or something.
Oh no, those were fruit flies. That was because my roommate was extremely messy. These were house flies, like black house flies. The basic standard fly, and they were everywhere. And I had just been there, and there were none,
dude.
And I went on a walk with my friend, so maybe we were gone for. I don't know, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And when we walked in the door, we were hit with just flies everywhere. We're like, what? So I looked it up as best I could. The suggestion is that somewhere within like my vents or something that like an animal had died and that, flies had or like laid eggs when they consumed the body, and then that was a hatching of all of those flies. But they were like full size, so I don't get it, man.
They only burst out after aging,
I guess.
Which is horrifying to think of this animal corpse that's getting filled with flies.
Also, where is that corpse?
I don't know, Tim.
Like, what is going on? It was really upsetting.
Why your apartment?
Yeah, why me?
Did you see any kind of were they centralized by event or anything?
We thought maybe it was the vent over the kitchen, which is even more disturbing. It's just gross.
Your food area, yeah.
Seriously, it sucked.
Well, last thing I had, always got a shout out when there's a fun musical pop culture reference in these films that we watch. The son at the beginning, he's rocking out to Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting by Elton John.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for?
Exactly. Great. Well, with that, I'm going to put a bow on the entity if you are.
Yeah.
Then let's see what RecommenDEADtions we have to wind down.
I'm looking right now to see if I've recommended this before. I don't think I have. So I'm going to do it even if I have, because who cares? We're into the mid-hundreds of episodes. So whatever. It's called The Bay. Have you heard of this?
I think so.
Bay.
Is it the found footage movie by what's-his-face?
Well, it's by Barry Levinson.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I hated it.
Did you hate it? I was fascinated by it.
I remember there being really bad effects.
Yeah, I guess they're not great, but I think the idea overrides that for me.
Okay.
But I don't want to tell you what the idea is because then it gives away the whole movie. But I really liked it. So I think if you are into, let's say, if you want to feel squeamish in your seat, I think this movie will do it for you.
Okay. Tim will say that one.
Yep.
I will not second that one.
That's fair.
From my memory, it was a while ago. Great. I will recommend Dead nay a film, but a segment on 60 Minutes. You've been busy, Tim, but you got to catch up if you haven't watched this. It's called on YouTube. You can find it. It's called Navy Pilots Describe Encounters with UFOs. Posted on their YouTube channel with 1.13 million subscribers on May 16th of this year. Tim, this was the coolest thing watching. There have been a couple other like CNN follow-ups. Basically, seeing for the first time in our life what I've always kind of fantasized about seeing, or what we've seen depicted in movies time and time again, is like the most mainstream you can get news reports saying, having to speak about UFOs and the government acknowledging UFOs for the first time ever.
Sure. Just to clarify, that doesn't mean they're acknowledging aliens.
That's so frustrating that you can't say it without people thinking that that's what you mean. No, I never said aliens.
I know. I'm putting that out there because I keep seeing people talking about it. And they're like, see, finally, confirmation, aliens exist. And I'm like, no, something exists that we don't understand or know what it is. That's where we're at.
That's huge.
And that's huge in and of itself. And just let it be that.
I'm proud of whoever's giving in, is basically just the increasing media coming out of, there was a big New York Times, so it was kind of building onto itself. But so proud of whoever I feel like it's such an ailment in our society to be afraid of like not knowing something. And just, that affects how well you appear to say like, I don't know in something. Yeah. Like it's one of the worst like traits we have, I think, as a world nation, whatever, as a singular psychological entity. So just to have something that they so forthright are saying, we don't know what this is. We don't know. We cannot explain the way these things move.
It's a mystery, which to me that's what's exciting.
Yeah.
Is that now that it's getting more attention, maybe there will be more sort of emphasis on trying to figure out what it is rather than assuming it's, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because there are all sorts of possibilities.
Which they get into.
Yeah, it could be interdimensional. It could be spycraft from other nations. We don't know. Like, it could be all sorts of stuff. It could be just something that we couldn't even fathom.
But I'm telling you, it was just, I have to recommend it because I thought it was so significant and so cool to see like the mainstream outlets like having to talk about it for the first time. So
that's cool.
Please poke around.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched it. I've seen very, very tiny clips in the like few extra minutes here and there.
Right. With all that,
not in the 60 minutes.
Check it out. The 60 minutes one is fun. But with all that is easy to get down about in our world too, to have something that just feels like a scientific unknown, that's not so easy. Like, let's say, Moon and Mars exploration, where it's hard for people to get excited about that nowadays because of the money it costs. To have simply something that's just an observable thing happening to sort of, I don't know, just maybe get our sense of wonder back with the world, I think is cool.
Look, there's more square mileage, I guess, if you will, on the planet that has not been explored.
Beautiful. Like
just all of the oceans, like the deep oceans. We have no idea what's down. Well, I mean, not no idea, but like there's a lot of fathoms down there, many fathoms below, and we don't, there could be a whole civilization just chilling down there.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And it's just fascinating too to see, so what are people's reactions to now this is reaching a certain mainstream? Because I feel like there's the people in the camp who are just kind of like, none of it is, there's nothing to it. It's literally always the weather balloon or group psychosis or, whatever the explanations are that they kind of, always sewn into the zeitgeist. And then you have the other camp, which is kind of people who aren't surprised. They're just kind of like, yeah, I mean, haven't we known about this stuff for a while? Right. And so to those people that are like, what's the big deal? I'm saying it's the fact that it's being talked about this level of these kinds of news shows is the huge deal. And then it's so funny, the other camp, where it's just like they're still just kind of like it sounds like they would only seeing something in person themselves. Like it doesn't matter who or what it's come from, or I don't know, or maybe it's going to slowly trickle into their acceptance or something. I don't know, but it's been really fascinating just to see how people react. And it seems like there's two distinct camps indeed still.
Yeah, at least two.
Great. Well,
cool, dude.
Do you have our stand-in hat handy here?
I do, but wait a minute. Here we go. It is right.
I believe it's my turn to tell you when to stop, or I could do it on my end. I don't know.
Yeah. Here, I got to back out a little bit. Doop, 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 doop. Doop. That's probably good. Yeah. I'm gonna blindly just sort of hover. So you
and stop.
A recommendation.
Yeah.
Submitted by the one and only Brendan Welsh. Splice.
All right.
So we're back into the 2000s.
Yes, we ended our streak of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pre-2000 films.
That won't happen again.
I know. It was a big, I mean, who knows, but that was a big run. Great. Splice, I have not seen since I saw it. They always showed the Man's Chinese Theater down on Hollywood Boulevard, that big screen that they now converted into like the fake IMAX screen or whatever.
Yep.
They used to show the most like oddball selections there.
Really?
They used to never show like the big blockbusters or whatever. I saw Splice there. I saw Observe and Report there. I always see like funky movies there. Anyway, that's when I saw Splice.
Cool.
Was
I
in
saw
theaters
Harry
there.
Potter there. I don't remember
they
which
play
one.
the big ones too. Yeah, but anyway,
that's cool. I
then.
Can't remember if I've actually seen Splice.
Cool.
Maybe.
I think it is. I remember being really interesting.
I remember the poster.
Yeah,
for sure. I think I've seen it, but it's been a while.
We'll see what your Letterboxd says.
Yeah, that's actually a good call. I probably have seen it.
Great. Well, until then, next week you can find us wherever you found us. Our big ask is, if you enjoyed being here, which we hope you did if you made it this far, is to tell a friend who might enjoy being here too. But all the same, if not, that's okay. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Great. Well, in closing, we hope you aren't experiencing any entities. But if you are, we hope they're on the benevolent side. So thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time. Goodbye.